So there's a lot of information out there on the internet, and there's also a lot of misinformation out there on the internet. And one of the most recent topics that you will find a lot of misinformation and information about is AI. There's a lot of contention, a lot of debate about what it can do, what it does, how it does it, yada, 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 so on and so forth. So, what we are going to do is try to break down a couple of the more common AI myths. We sourced some of these from our socials, just some of the ones we saw floating around. And Yashi, you are our resident AI ethicist. You did the research for these, so give us your background real quick. Like, explain to people why you know what you do about AI.
So I went to school for computer science, or originally did, and when I started my master's, I chose the topic of AI ethics in healthcare and the creative field originally, and that became something more like literally in general. So it spanned into law, business, and what have you. Um, I don't know much else to say about
That's
my
that's
credits.
good. Do we just, we're just pointing out that we're not just a bunch of schmucks that are sitting here, just coming up with random answers. You have a background, you understand at a technical level as well as kind of an ethical level. So on that note, um, I'm just gonna feed you a question, and then you give us your answer. CJ Beatrice, feel free to chime in, ask questions. So the first one we have here is how could authors use AI ethically? And this is kind of a bigger one. Like, how ethical is it to use Gen AI to brainstorm for writing or other creative work? Or like people say, like, oh, I don't use it for writing, but I'll use it for idea generation. Where explain.
So I've seen people talk about it in content creation as well. In this current state, I would say that AI isn't ethical to use, or Gen AI isn't ethical to use at all for content generation, for brainstorming, for editing, or what have you, because one, it is subjected to far too many biases. The data it's trained on is obviously human data, and we are far from perfect. We are filled with our own hatred for other people or things. Um, it can also hallucinate, and this is when Gen AI doesn't understand what you're asking it. It's going to go to every end to give you an answer because that is what it's coded to do. So it's basically nonsense just to satisfy your prompt. And if you don't actually double check it, there might be like negative consequences that comes with it. I think we've had to deal with AI kind of hallucinating and giving people things that they shouldn't have, and then they had to deal with consequences, sadly.
Yeah, I mean, probably the most recent example that at least we've talked about is probably the most relevant one lately is the article the Chicago Sun-Times where an entire summer to read list was not all of those hallucinated, but I think it was 60% of the books on there were not not real. So
Yeah. And like, let's say since it's trained on copyright works, even if you don't think it might be, not you in general, you, um, it's likely to regurgitate something that belongs to someone else, even when it's like attempting to aid you in your fully original idea. It every idea has been done before, in some shape or form. So like when the AI spews it out, it's like making these connections without you under realizing it, like on the spot. Um, and I just don't feel safe with the environmental concerns to use like Gen AI because one prompt, even if you don't know, is using way too much energy and it puts too much strain on our servers. So just having them meet that demand is just too much for me.
all right, so we'll get that into that in just a second. And I want to go to CJ real quick. You've discussed in previous episodes that you feel it is okay to use for kind of idea generation, that kind of stuff. Um, does this answer change your mind at all? Do you view it differently?
He
I don't
went
know.
into
It's a
the
good
thinker.
question. Yeah, I
Do you
I
need
had
time
to
to
had
ruminate?
to pull out the thinker. Um, I think so. I do need a little bit of time to ruminate. My
And
Yeah,
I will
I need more
send you
time.
the I'll send you the document with Yashi's cliff notes so you can have the cliff notes of what she said so you don't have to try to remember it all. But all right, go to the next one. You touched on it a little bit, Yashi. Like, is using Gen AI actually bad for the environment?
So this is something I'll fully admit to saying that I didn't actually know until I was finally able to deep dive into it. Um, and this is something that I've been talking to CJ about and how I came to this understanding that I was very clueless on it. Um, so we assumed that data centers did something that follows common sense and they reused water to cool their, systems. Turns out that's not what happens. They don't do that. And based on a 2022 like Epic AI study, the amount of computing that major corps had used to train like large scale AI models was doubling like every 10 months between like 2015 and 2022, which I didn't know it was starting from 2015. My mind was blown when I like looked at this, and I can defend myself why I didn't know. It's because when I was doing my paper, the study wasn't out for me. Um, anyway, so like the findings ended up getting doubled, like not even doubled. It was like 4 times or 5 times like larger in 2024. And it was just showing that just because of the demand we have, these corporations were forced to kind of accommodate. So, like, there's like rapid growth in the data center infrastructure, which includes the cooling systems, the power systems, and then you have the manufacturing that contributes into the pollution. There's more water consumption since the cooling systems obviously need to work with something. There's land usage that plays into the factor, and then there's electronic waste, which I didn't even think about how we've been kind of polluting the world with our electronic waste. So,
So,
like,
real quick,
it's,
the number that I was just throwing out there is like you use a gallon of water per AI search or whatever. Like, is that close to the truth?
um, so the way that I was reading it is that they were basically measuring it by the wa like the wattage, the
Okay.
terawatts. So it's like I wouldn't know if it's a gallon of water, but at the same time, it's like it's not far-fetched.
Is it fair to say the only way we would ever know is that an AI company would basically figure that out and report it? Because I feel like that's a piece of information they're probably not going to give us.
And you wouldn't be wrong. Like, why would they give us that
Hmm.
information?
Um, and I don't know if you or CJ actually know the answer to this. Like, explain this whole thing where they don't reuse their water. Like, is it just too much effort to cool it back down to run it through again, or what the hell?
CJ,
I mean,
please
I
crash
can talk.
out.
Okay, I can talk about this for a little bit. So my background is a mechanical engineering student. I haven't graduated yet. Very close. Um, but um, so when I was talking to Yashi about this, I was like, yeah, it makes sense. You're just gonna, cooling system. It would be a big closed loop, right? You take the water, goes through the process, takes out all the heat, then goes into a big cooler, comes back around, and then goes back in
Yeah,
again.
kind of
It's a
like
closed,
the
right?
like you see on like the big desktop computers that people build themselves. The cool blue water that goes through.
And I had to sit and think about it for a moment because I was like, okay, that's a lot. Like if these data centers are absolutely huge,
Hmm.
because they have to be to keep
Hmm.
up with the amount of internet usage that we're using globally. This is not necessarily just a thing about AI usage. I think right now it's probably one of the most consuming things that we're doing, which is most likely why this is such a big deal for AI specifically, is because like everybody's getting in on it. Everybody's throwing all of their programming potential and everything into data centers to get as much training out as possible, as fast as possible. So a lot of growth has to happen, which is what Yashie was just talking about earlier, right? A lot of these places have to expand in their amount of land that they're using, throw things out, build new things, get things done. The amount of cooling that you would need to have for this, I don't actually know the like specifically how this works, how much they're using. I don't have any numbers, but I think from vaguely what I'm reading in one of the articles that you sent me, that it's, and this is kind of the same conclusion that I got to, it's too costly to have a dedicated cooling thing for all of this amount of water. So I imagine that a lot of it just gets dumped. It gets pumped in, too hot, and then dumped out. It's like it would take probably way too much money and time and effort to build a dedicated cooling thing in the amount of like short term it wouldn't work. So long term, you could spend a lot of time and build this. Nobody wants to do long term.
And I think in one of those articles, it talks about how they actually built their data centers in these drought-struck lands, like Arizona, or, land that's basically
Hmm, hmm,
open,
hmm.
and they're not often places with water. And I'm just like, okay,
Ooh.
so they've mentioned like one of the things they could do is build a data center in lands that are like that have more water. Therefore, it would even it out. And I'm just like,
But it's probably more expensive for them anyway. And that's
and
why they're choosing not to.
and think about it. If the land has more water, I can't imagine people will be like less numerous there.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Arizona, it's mostly like desert and there's a lot of land that they can just build on and be undisturbed. Whereas in, I don't, which state off the top of your heads could you say that has
It will
water?
be a place that they would probably be displacing people, which is awful.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Uh,
we don't want
I
to do that.
I mean, was it Meta is buying an island off of the coast of New York. That used to be like a nuclear power plant, so they can start it back up. Like that's how much energy they're using.
Yeah, I forgot all about that.
And then I think it was CBS and 60 Minutes ran something like it was a lady who lived nearby one of the Meta plants, and like she has to basically store water when it runs because the AI plants like take up so much of the water. The I think CJ, you got something? You look like
Yeah,
you
okay,
hit a
okay.
you hit
I
a
have
eureka.
I have more information. I have more information. The water's not being dumped. Okay, CJ from the future here. I wanted to not immediately lose my credibility. Um, I'm gonna I'm just gonna say that I think I was slightly wrong about how I described data center water usage. Basically, the three main ways that they do a lot of it just has a lot of evaporated water because apparently that's the best way for cooling, and that evaporated water just kind of leaves because that's what water does. But for the most part, it evaporates and then leaves. So hot areas, like where they have a lot of stretches of land and very easy to build large data centers, they spray mist. When it's very dry, water goes away. Some of them don't do that. Some of them do compressed gas, compressed air, and the water still evaporates, of course. And other ones, they send the hot water over to fans. Fans blow. Some of the water evaporates and leaves. Anyway,
Thanks, CJ from the future.
Thank you, CJ from the
I didn't want to
future.
be wrong.
It's getting recycled, but not in the way we thought.
Yeah.
So
Quit.
so the conclusion here is it still uses a lot of energy. It still uses a lot of water, but the number we see thrown around the internet of a gallon per search probably not accurate.
I,
It's
I would say it's
probably
probably not
not,
accurate.
but it's like I would really want to see how do you convert like the electrical usage to water consumption because that would give us a clear answer, but I'm just like I don't think we'll get that
Well,
answer
and then I
easily.
And I
mean,
feel like,
go ahead.
oh, I feel like that's one of the issues in which like people sometimes don't understand how much of an impact things are actually causing because people are throwing that whole gallon of water without having everything to back it up instead of taking the time and explaining it a little bit better. So people are assuming that it's an exaggeration or that it's incorrect or anything in the terms of like the impact that it's having environmentally. And instead, it's just that it's way more complicated than that. And they're just kind of like dismissing it because they can't find where this very specific
Hmm.
measuring element is coming from.
Yeah, that I
Yeah.
mean, that's why it's important to have actual facts, which we will
Exactly.
probably never get, because that would require the AI companies to give them to us. But also, I would expect that an AI developed by, OpenAI is probably going to function and use resources differently than, Google's Gemini or Meta's Llama or Grok, whatever the fuck it is. Um,
Grok.
so I assume they're all going to operate differently. So we're never going to have an exact number because each AI has been developed independently.
Hmm.
Yeah. And
So,
even if they use like one AI as a base, it's still
mhm.
this independent thing.
Yeah, it's still going to be a margin of error, but yeah. So moral of the story is it uses more energy than people probably are willing to admit. But that gets us into a different question. So are there different types of AI that you can use? Which ones are more ethical? And presumably they all use roughly the same amount of resources. But what what types of AI are there? Are there types?
There are. And this is one of those things where I was up at around 4 a.m. and I was like, you don't want me to get into this.
Hmm.
You don't want. So this is a whole 3-hour lecture. So for the
Well,
sake of this
I'll have three
podcast,
hours, so give me
yeah.
like the 3 minute version.
Personally, I think this question was way better for a blog post. But there
You
are
can do
different
that too.
types. Yeah, I will. I probably will. There are different types of AI, and they all just serve their own purposes. But for this, I'm going to explain that generative AI is just referring to like deep learning models, and it can generate text, images, and other content mediums based on whatever prompt you really give it. And it's not like just limiting to art, it can also generate code. I need to art. Okay, you can generate code, have like this sort of like chat bot, and I've seen that IBM is even trying to use it to create this like sort of synthetic data. Um, Honestly, all of it sounds incredible on paper, and it's not. I don't. The way these things are trained, it's not incredible. And something we kind of have to understand when it comes to other AIs is that AI has been around for like decades. I have had a professor who has his degree in AI and he's probably like 40, 50. Like it's been here. It's not just something new. So like these models are less obvious and we use them to this day. So like speech recognition, like Siri or you know, spell check or Excel functions even. Those are AI and those are incredibly like beneficial to us. They aren't like harmful. They don't have massive computational like um usage like it's not generating too much electricity that you need to worry about like environmental concerns. It's still like, just very minuscule and so embedded into our lives that we'd never really considered it into as AI.
So, follow-up question to that. One of the terms that gets thrown around a lot is large language model. Is that the same as AI? And if not, how do they differ? Short version, short version.
No, okay, so think of it as a subsection. So a large language model is AI, but it's very specific. It's it like I said, it's just something that is limited to like text generation, image generation, what have you. It's not, oh, I could do all of this crazy stuff. I could detect heart disease. Different models.
Yeah.
3-minute
I,
version.
All right.
I
I'm
think
going to
also
cry.
I think also when AI, the term has a bad rap, right?
Yeah.
Bad rap.
Yeah.
So I think people trying to use large language model is also a way of trying to get away from the
Mm.
AI piece as like a marketing thing, because I want to say one thing to one of the points that you said, Yashie. Algorithms are a form of computer intelligence.
Yes.
The reason that an algorithm like spell check does not cost the same amount as a large language model is because spell check is basically a large table of words and a bunch of if checks that are like, hey, if this person pressed a K, what are all the words in this list that match next to K? I, O, J, L, M. That's it. That's like a basic form of spell check. They get more advanced, sure, but you know, an algorithm is a form of artificial intelligence. Large language model is a form of artificial intelligence. Both of the, you call something an algorithm, it's trying to get away from being AI because they are, large language model, algorithm, two very distinct things, but they're basically artificial
Look,
intelligence. So it's
look,
just marketing terms at some point.
look at the web developer coming in with a hot marketing take. We're
I
so proud.
have
I'm so proud of you too. I have
Thank
taught you
you.
well.
Thank
I
you.
have
But
a question though, because like AI is a buzzword for us because people don't really understand what AI is. They think everything might be Gen AI when it's not. Like people would fall back to this notion that spell check is AI and what have you. So it confuses people. Um, I would you say that it would be better to differentiate between LLMs and spell check or what have you, or whatever model spell check is considered in the near future, or is it better to just lump it all together and say AI? Because we don't actually know what AI is. Something I've learned is that it's a theory. It's what it could be. But it's not what it is right now.
I'm
That's very
I'm gonna
true.
need you to extrapolate on that.
Um, so when I say AI, what is the first thing you think? Don't think before Gen AI went viral.
Neural net.
Uh
Okay,
oh,
you're a
you mean
tech
like
person.
I mean I
Yeah,
would have
I know.
said I would have said the closest thing we had to AI before it went viral would have been like Alexa or Siri or whatever the hell is on my phone that listens to me and pops up.
Speech recognition,
Yeah.
That's a good
or
good good point.
many people respond with Terminator, and
I thought that, but I didn't want to go there because I wasn't sure if that's what you wanted. But yes, I immediately thought of Skynet for many,
I
many years.
know, Skynet, Terminator, what have you. So the concept of AI is that it could be another intelligence that is on par with us. And again, we stem back to this type of AI. But it's a theory that it could be like that. And they say, "Oh yeah, that's artificial intelligence." Obviously we're not at that theory, and I wouldn't say that it's a good idea to classify by AI, but and just stick to what it actually is. But that's my own gripes and my own thoughts because I'm a snob from the school.
Hmm. Um,
I do have a question, and it's just basically asking you the same thing that you asked CJ, but I want to know your opinion and like you if you feel that it's more beneficial for us and to have a better understanding to what we're actually referring to on separating things very specifically. I'm talking about generative AI. I am talking about a different type of LLM. I am talking about an algorithm and what do you think those conventions could look like in the future if you feel like it's a good idea to start separating what we're talking about and the way that we express about it?
I will say that something that prevents us from separating it is convenience. It is much easier to say AI than it is, oh, ChatGPT or an LLM. You don't have to remember much more. But I think it would be very beneficial just to separate it because when we have conversations, it is so easy to get lost in them and get confused. In my head, in order to lessen those confusions, I would start saying like the exact thing I'm using or the exact thing I'm like referring to. And it's easier for the other person to digest and understand my points. Um, but when I just say AI, I get like these weird ass looks. Like, ha, what are you talking about? There's like so many other AIs. I've had this like moment with my colleagues. They're just like, what are you talking about? And I have to spend more time just explaining myself. And it's like, if I just said it, then it would be better. In terms of conventions, I feel like it would feel almost like second nature to us if we just started like differentiating from now and then letting it just follow later. But I wouldn't know, honestly. I conversation confuses me.
Hmm.
Not the most social. Look at my degree.
Yeah. So you talked a lot about how AI was kind of trained kind of unethically on people's copyrighted works. And if someone wants to debate us on that, please show us the proof that it was trained ethically. Um, but what can people do if they find their work generated by another person? Can they file copyright infringement claims? And obviously you are not a legal expert, but still gonna feed you that one.
I did actually get help from a friend for this one because we know legal experts in my circle. Um, yay! So her like her advice was to treat it as if AI wasn't in the question. Um, so you technically can't have your work like spewed without certain prompting or what have you. So say in the situation you had someone go up to you, take your artwork, show you that they had it, and then they put it in AI, showed you the prompt, and then they showed you what the AI spewed. That is where you start amassing your evidence that you can prove your ownership to this art piece, and then you should let the person know that, look, they've violated your copyright, and if they don't back down, if they don't resolve it, then I was also told you should just work out your losses and threaten to sue for compensation. There's also an open like lawsuit, Cadre versus Meta,
Hmm.
and it's a similar thing except on a larger scale.
Is that the um LibGen?
I believe so.
Okay.
Is Yeah, I recall when I was talking to my friend, she was explaining that these are these big like law firms getting together to fight this, and I was like, oh,
Nice.
this is like a full-on war. Um,
Good. And
Cool.
I
good.
think I mean, it's especially important for like law firms and like big established things to try to fight this because if not, what can authors, especially indie authors that are trying to break into the writing world, can expect? Like being in a legal battle with a multi-million-dollar company as a single person is almost impossible because of how expensive it is. So the only like hope that we have as authors into getting some regulations or like having these big companies kind of like step back a little bit or even face consequences or like pay damages to the people that they have hurt infringing their copyright is having these things happen. What else are we going to do as individuals? I mean, another thing would be, which I think this is the lawsuit that you were talking about, that is how do you call it whenever it's like a lawsuit that is like a million of people, that's like a lot of people that
Class
join it,
action.
like a class action lawsuit. But that's kind of it, and that's what's so scary about it.
People with lots of money and lots of power will never stop unless they are forced to.
Yeah, and they can only be forced
Yeah.
mostly by other people with
Hmm.
lots of money and lots of power.
And I mean, there was even the article recently where the former Meta execs basically said if
Yeah.
they had to ethically train AI, the entire industry would collapse. So
Hmm.
Yep.
kind of damning
Yep.
evidence right there. But
Yep.
Oh no, guess it. It's not, it's ethically trained. These data sets are very ethical. You heard it here, guys.
Hmm.
I hope you can hear the sarcasm in my voice. Oh my goodness.
We'll put something on the screen that clearly indicates you're being sarcastic for those
Yashi
that
is
maybe didn't
very
figure it out.
sarcastic.
Disclaimer.
Uh,
Um,
so just to move on to the next topic, though, what can we do about can is it possible to poison AI with some of the products that are out there? Uh,
I feel yesterday, how long have I been rambling about AI to you yesterday? I
Since
don't
Monday.
know.
It's so I think it's technically only been like 24 hours.
No, I mean,
I
how
think it's
long did that
Tuesday.
span?
Oh, it was a while.
Yeah.
My
Um,
God.
I stayed up an entire night just studying whether or not we could develop a glaze or nightshade for our ebooks that we're eventually going to release. Storyforge. Anyway, um, technically, yes, it could be developed, and I guess what we need to consider is it necessary? Because let's look at glaze and nightshade. These are two ethically trained AIs. Um, the problem is that
Hang on, I'm
ChatGPT,
gonna pause you for a second there because you'd been saying that things were not ethically trained before, but you just said these were ethically trained. So I want
these
you to
were
clarify. How were these ethically trained?
Glaze and Nightshade were both trained by authors who consented to use their data
Okay.
to train it. So yes, there are ethically trained AIs. These two are specifically meant to add noise to your artwork and it disrupts AI. So it's cool. Um, sadly, they've become obsolete. This is because Gen AI has the ability to one up a another AI. So both programs are just continuing to evolve at a fast rate. It's just one is going faster than the other, and when it clashes, it creates a vulnerability, and it's like, nope, anyways, and it overcomes the AI that was meant to protect us. So, what we had to consider when I was working on this research is would it create more problems? Ultimately, yes. Because when you create something new, you have to understand that there is always going to be someone who wants to break it. And this is like some sort of ego thing, pride thing. It's actually kind of funny. As much as it can help a programmer, it's going to cause very frustrating um consequences for us. And no matter what we do, they are going to continue to break it, and to me, it makes no sense to develop this thing. But
So
I
it's
can't explain
basically
that.
possible, it's just way more complicated than what people think it'll be, because I think that's another misconception. People think that all of these issues have a simpler solution, which that's not the case.
Simpler solutions are very short-term solutions, in my opinion.
Yep.
Um,
Mm.
That's a
my
very good response.
Yep.
Very proud.
my thought was we could have used something similar to Social Security numbers, like how they encrypt it. And then I was like, but those are so easy to like, decrypt. So like that doesn't make sense to do. And then, there's also like lots of limitations with like the byte size and what have you. Okay, my brain.
Yeah.
I could go into this for like hours.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that.
I already
Um,
did.
so let's say you come across something that you think might have been written by AI, and there's those detectors out there. We've researched them before. There's probably 8 or 10 well-known ones, and probably like 4 or 5 that people seem to trust. How useful are those?
No. Is that a good answer? Probably not. It's not useful, because if AI was trained on our stolen data, that means it is writing very similar to us. It is human data. Um, so when you put uh content that you've written into an AI detector, it is very likely going to say that, oh, an AI wrote this because it is the exact same way the AI wrote it. Wrong. That is the exact same way a human wrote it, and AI is just copying us. So literally, there is no way to actually detect whether or not someone is using AI unless they have damning evidence. For example, leaving a prompt in your book, Casey Crown.
Hmm.
I would say that this more specifically for writing, because
Yeah.
image, I would say that like if writing would be like what this is a terrible way of describing it, but writing would be like 1D where it's just characters. Images would be 2D where you've got like
Hmm.
color, pixels, type, everything. There's a lot more dimension going on with images. It's a lot harder to make those be correct in the right medium. Anyway,
So what about though? We always see them. They trend around like, oh, this is a certain way that AI uh AI rating is identifiable, like the M dashes and stuff like that. Like, how many of those have actually been true? I know I threw this one at you just kind of random. Have you seen any of those out there that have actually been real? Like, oh, use an M dash, you're an AI. You know, use the
So,
Oxford comma. You stay the fuck away from my Oxford comma.
damn.
Not my
Um,
Excel formulas. You stay away.
I love Oxford for commas.
so I've been actually talking about this to a friend who's in the UK, and they explained that, M dash doesn't really get used as much as it is in US English. Um, so for people to say that, it's a symbol of AI, they're probably thinking of like UK English, where that's not common and they don't see it as much. Um, but that's detracting. No, actually, I don't think there's like a tell for it. It's more of like I genuinely do not know how some people are able to pick up on it. I feel like when you're using AI, it's droning on in a sense. It doesn't have a straightforward path, or it has problems creating like one single thought in a sense in a writing. But you have to understand again that is coming from humans. I can't do that either. I
Hmm.
have ADHD.
uh, there's also another. I think like that. Now that you're telling me, now that you're saying it like that, it's very interesting because I think like one of the ways that LLMs work is they kind of uh, it's a prediction on what the next word should be in what they give you.
hmm
So if the next like it's never going to be like, oh, the next logical thing here to be would be to put a period. Sometimes it's, oh, I could put a period, I could put and, I could put about, I could put a comma, I could put next. So it's a whole list of things, and a lot of them are not punctuation, so it's almost always going to make a next another word and keep going.
Yeah, it
I don't know, I thought that was very
almost
interesting.
feels kind of like the human brain. It's just like you have so many possibilities and the LLM is trying to
And
think like us, but it's
that's
not.
that's why this is such a cool like area of research, because we're still also trying to figure out the brain at the same time, because like
Exactly.
it's so connected. I don't know.
It's oh my goodness. I wish I there was something I was doing in college, and this is off topic a little bit, but we were talking about hallucinations, and this is
Not where I
funny.
expected this to go.
This is funny because my professor, he knows I was very sleep deprived, and sometimes I just zone out and I drone on, and he's like, "Are you hallucinating right now?" And I'm like, "In what way?" And he's like, "In the way that your brain is making up things." And I'm like, "I don't see people at the moment because that is something that happens with my stress, but I'm hearing you say things that you're not saying." He's like, that's similar to AI. It thinks things that you know, that you didn't think it would think, but hey, it's getting to the end point, however necessary. You're doing the same right now. And I was like, are you telling me that hallucinations are very human? Or it may have copied our hallucinations? Are you saying that I am not unique? He's like, that is exactly what I'm saying. I'm sorry I broke it to you that way. And I was like,
I feel
thanks.
like That is so important. Like the whole idea of like talking about like how the brain works and how AI works and everything. It to kind of like I don't think the right word is demystify it necessarily, but talk a little bit more matter of factly about just AI and like how people just think that they can recognize something is written by AI because they just have a sixth sense. I actually sent this post to Tim a while ago, someone saying that they very, very, very confidently are able to recognize when AI is used in marketing for like very specific tells. And number one is kind of what you were saying, it has been trained on humans. Therefore, these things are originated by humans. But also I do feel like people that think like that are using just their personal experience and whatever is around them at the moment to make those assumptions. And that's where like the witch hunt begins. I have seen that like personally like be confused with like people that English is not their first language because sentence structures are different in different languages and sometimes people the way that they speak is not as concise and common as someone that would have English in the first language. That is my case, as you can clearly see for how much I draw on. And that could seem like it's the whole run on sentences that you guys were talking about with AIs and doesn't have a lot of punctuations and everything. But it's just because the brain of that person works in a different configuration than your brain, but it doesn't mean it's AI. And I think it's getting worse and worse to the point that people are believing that the only reality and the only valid things are the ones that look exactly like the things that they do. And that's why we see so many AI accusations thrown out there for people that are different of to the person that is accusing them.
You know what kind of makes me realize that these run-on sentences aren't always a tell for AI is when I leave voice notes for my friends
Mhm.
and it has these transcripts. I see how much like I run on and I drone on and it doesn't stop. It doesn't have a period. And if you really think about it or you really try to like write out an actual transcript for me, you would notice that you're not going to be using a period for me as well. Like it's it's something. Something I do want to add for the AI detectors is please don't actually put someone's work into it. You could get sued for that if someone finds out. Not a good thing. Good disclaimer
Whoa.
though.
Whoa.
Because AI detectors train on the work that is being put
Yes,
on,
That
right?
makes sense.
some of them do, and then it's copyright laws. Even if it isn't training on AI, it could you're still taking someone's content and putting it somewhere without their permission.
Feel
Valid.
like that's, I mean, I feel like that'd be hard to prove, but I mean, probably legally correct.
It's
Yeah.
hard to prove, but you have people who would literally post a
Yeah.
screenshot of it, and I'm just like,
That
Mm,
happens a lot with the art world as well. We even have that commented on threads to the Storyforge account in one of the like anti-Gen AI things that we saw that one of our users said, yes, this happened to me. I posted an illustration about my story on threads and just talking about how I prefer to do things by hand than AI because human creativity and then someone just like responded back to that thread with an AI generated image that was based on the actual illustration that they put out. And we also see that happening more and more. Because unfortunately people are trying to prove a point, but a lot of the times they don't have facts backing them up. So they use this kind of things to try to prove their points, in my opinion.
no, that's exactly correct. Like,
I'm
that sounds so rude. No,
using a lot of protective language just in case. I don't know.
no, don't worry. Yeah, you're correct. Like, I wish some people didn't get so defensive when it came to AI, but at the same time, I understand it. We're in a field that is insanely threatened by Gen AI because we are the easiest to get to at the moment. Um, I can go on about how I wanted it met, but I won't. I, I don't. Oh my
It
goodness.
it honestly seems like AI in the creative field is generally giving the least benefit to society. And that is not taken away from anyone who uses like it as like a disability assistance thing. And that is a completely different category of AI. But I feel like generally the people who are just pumping out AI books, like what is that adding to humanity? Why are we doing this other than that person's trying to make a couple bucks? Like, let's put AI into something that can benefit humanity. We always talk about putting it into medicine, balance our goddamn government budget. There are so many different ways that AI could be used instead of trying to write books, which people everywhere want to do already. Like, there's no point in pushing it into the creative field. Sorry, at the end of that rant, I'm going to go back to CJ because I told you I was going to come back to you on that first question.
Yeah, I've been thinking of. I thought about it a lot. Uh, can I like? I don't know. I think people just want to. I think you're right. I think people just want to make money. It's a completely new thing. And what the like Meta executive said, is that what we said earlier about like how it's impossible to train AI
Ethically,
ethically because
yeah.
it's just going to destroy the industry? It's very true, because the only way for them to keep going and going and going and snowballing and keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger is if they just keep taking as much as they can. That's it. That's the only way that they can keep training and keep getting better and keep pumping out new models every other day, is if they force data centers as hard as possible, as fast as possible, with as much data as possible, which is where all of these environmental issues coming from. So, barring all of those environmental issues,
Hmm.
and going all the way back to Yashie's first thing about how I feel about like idea creation and everything, I am still completely on the fence, because if we ignore all of the environmental problems, I still think it is almost exactly the same as thinking of ideas. I think it's just an extension of the brain, but just another form of it. And if barring throwing one, like, okay, again, AI generated art and AI generated work, and just throwing that out there and claiming that as your own is the most ridiculous thing that any creative person could do ever. Don't do that, please. That's not, I don't condone that in any way. I don't think you should be posting AI art and being like, this is mine, or taking somebody else's work, throwing it in there and remixing it and being like, I made this, prompted. That's not true. Don't do that. That's not real. You didn't make that. You didn't prompt that. It came out of a brain that's not yours. I do think it's good for idea generation, ignoring water usage, data usage, energy usage. I think the idea goes back into your brain remixes it, and you make it anyway. If you ask the AI to create a paragraph for you and you just copy paste that in, don't do that. That's dumb. But if you're like that, okay, that's a good idea. And then you're like, oh, now I'm going to go think about how do I write about a cult? And you go and do a little bit of research because the AI, I don't know, said something like, oh, this is very cultish behavior. Cool. I'm going to give you some ideas that don't relate to cultish behavior. And you're like, oh, cultish behavior. Actually, I'm going to go in that direction. I think that that's perfectly fine. I think that's what we do every day when we talk to people, when we go and say things. I think it's, you know, go outside, talk to
Go
people.
outside. How are you gonna find a cult? Don't answer that.
No, I
Um,
I think
I
it's
meant
actually
more
pretty
like,
easy to find
Knowing
a cult.
the fact that his
shush, shush,
college
shush.
is the same college with one of the most famous cult leaders of all times graduated, I think it's very easy to find a cult here.
Um, CJ, honestly, as you were saying that, the first thing that came to mind was artificial brain cell, because
oh God. I
thank you.
saw something like that the other day, that they're using actual like brain. This is so unrelated to the podcast. But they're using actual brain cells to like do computer programs. Insane. It's ridiculous. But
I
yeah,
feel like
dude,
I've
if you want
heard that from
ideas,
someone.
go socialize.
Goes, don't use Gen AI because Gen AI has stolen from people.
I
And those
was
ideas are going to regurgitate at you.
But
I
like
was gonna
that's
say
oh
a very good way alternative for like idea generating and everything, which is like the process that I think a lot of authors that I know use is creating a like personal mood board of people of things that you like, and like maybe topics or themes or stuff. Like I use Pinterest a lot, for example, and I just collect images, quotes, book titles, songs, and stuff that just like give me vibes. I work on vibes specifically. I write on vibes, so that like most of my stories just have a shit ton of like 100 and something collection of vibe-based images, videos, quotes, screenshots, as what you would have. So when I'm going to write and I am stuck or blocked or whatever reason, I just literally scroll through things. And a lot of the times those are enough to prompt you. It doesn't even have to be writing prompts. I remember very distinctly like that I was talking a specific scene and I just saw a picture of rain, and all of a sudden it unlocked something on me that I started just describing the rain, and it developed into this scene that fit like the plot very well. And that's kind of like a way to exercise your brain, and that is also something that people that use AI for idea generated regeneration do. However, if you have everything just like hold to you, you're not having that extra like brain workout in order to exercise your creativity. Like maybe the results are the same. Maybe if you see a picture of rain and if the AI tells you you should add rain in this scene, in the end the story would potentially be the same, but it's not the same process that is happening in your brain, and it's not the same development that your creativity muscle is having, because one of them you created yourself, one of them you came up with, the second one you're just doing what something else is telling you. And the more that you relay on AI just feeding you things, the least you're going to be capable of coming up with those things by yourself. And that is what I personally find damaging about the whole I just use it for brainstorming,
Yeah.
because then why are you not capable of brainstorming yourself? Maybe that is something that you should practice.
It's not even that. I mean, we've also seen people who say that they've been writing for so long and then they're like, when AI came out, I started using it because I got my time back, and we go back to this notion that there is no time to spend on brainstorming. There is no time to actually enjoy the things you once did. Now it's all about getting it done, instant gratification, what have you. And I feel like that is the most terrifying part of Gen AI right now. Um, I've explained my experience in school, and they forced you to make AI your lifeline. I have not written on my computer since I left school because I am afraid, in a sense, of accidentally using AI again. Or when I say again, I was made to use it, and this is just clarification, I was made to use it for educational purposes, to understand the psychological effects it has on a person, and it is damaging. It, my ability to think, it decreased immensely. It was a lifeline, and I don't want to be in that position again. I love my little typewriter. I'm going to deal with the glitches. Just, I don't want to be online. That's that's where I was at with AI. Please
Wow.
don't go to school for ethical AI. They will make you experience it. And if
Okay.
they don't, I'm jealous.
Yeah, I'm on the other side of the fence now. I'm good. I'm saved.
You're safe. You you had to hear
That was
about my
enough.
trauma with
I
college.
I really only considered the and really only considered the environmental ramifications, which, by the way, I'm going to clarify. I don't really use AI for much, if at all, and I haven't since I learned anything about the environmental ramifications, which was a while ago. But yeah, those are very good points. Thank you.
Uh, next time you need me to trauma dump on you about my time in university, I will definitely be there and tell you all the horror stories that came with pursuing ethical AI, and how many times I've questioned my field.
But also, this is why these types of conversations are so important. Like people actually taking the time to just have a dialogue, because there's a lot of people out there that, for example, like choose to not take the environmental aspect into account. But like CJ, the fact that it will affect their brains and creativity is something that is way more damning to make these choices. So that's why I am talking to you now, the person looking at this, instead of just like fighting over the internet, trying to have a dialogue, and like, especially if someone's being mean to you, no. But like if someone is legit just trying to understand and make a decision, and you know something that could maybe give them more context, so way their decision is more informed, and you all are in the mental headspace to have a conversation, because you shouldn't feel forced to explain to people anything. These things are important, and these are things that are going to even be more important moving forward, because as AI gets more and more mainstream, it gets talked about in more and more general, non-specific ways, and people are just choosing to support it without seeing all of the things. So if you say you shouldn't support AI because it's bad, like I'm just gonna say, okay, why is it bad? It's just because you say so. I don't know who you are, instead of just like giving them the facts.
And also don't forget that there's more to it than just the little world we've talked about. Like I saw a report the other
Yes,
day that there's
exactly.
been almost 100,000 jobs lost this year to AI. It's just getting everything's getting outsourced. Customer service, which everyone hates already, is now being outsourced to AI. Programming, so outsourced to AI. All sorts of technical fields are now being outsourced to AI. So not only are we experiencing environmental ramifications, we're experiencing economical ramifications because there's now an additional 100,000 people out of jobs, let alone however many else are going to lose their jobs, marketing people, programmers, copywriters. It's We're not saying AI is bad, but we think AI needs to be used in a more ethical manner, in a more environmentally friendly way. Does everyone agree with that?
It needs more
I
regulations.
was gonna say
Yes.
that rules and regulations, we need those now.
Yeah, law is very reactive,
Yeah, I mean, I
unfortunately.
think that was part of the ethical thing, but yeah, the law, I mean, law takes a long time to catch up with anything. So if we have any kind of AI laws in the next 5 years, I'm shocked. Especially after we fired the head of like copyright, whatever the Trump fired the head of like Copyright Bureau or something like that. After she published a thing about how AI is stealing stuff or whatever. Like, I'll put a link down below. But yeah, it's unfortunately trending in the opposite direction. It's trending to favor big AI as opposed to helping people. It's trying to enrich the 10 richest men in the world even further as opposed to giving actual benefits to society, but instead we're going to use it to get random nonsense on Twitter and have it read our Facebook posts to us. So, yeah,
The
This
sigh.
was very cool, but it was a lot.
yeah.
This is a lot.
I will say that if people have questions, I would be more than willing to answer them. And I honestly enjoy having these conversations with people. Even if you are pro AI, um, I will say please come at it from a respectful like tone. But if you can't hold it that way, fine, I can deal with that too.
So feel
I've
free
been
Please
dealing
don't
with
to.
go
it.
on the internet and disrespect Yashie.
So
Please
if you
Yashie
do
will
don't
be
do that.
sad.
if you do have questions or want to, we'll say debate. We don't want to argue. We want to debate. Leave questions below or reach out to us at StoryForge on the majority of social platforms. We'd be happy to answer your questions, have a conversation. But if you just want to scream, you know nothing about AI, Mark Zuckerberg is my hero, fuck off.
I, yeah.
So, all right. Well, on that note, publishers behaving badly. It's not you, it's them.